that just a little bit more. Since we are not in one actual room, we form our spiritual space around a flame. And so I'm asking Mary Rothschild to begin our worship by lighting the chalice. Let me make sure you can see her.
Yes, I'm here. Please bring your chalice close if you have one, and join me as we light our chalice, saying these words. We kindle this flame, symbol of our faith, for the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of love, which calls us to work for justice.
Good morning, everyone. I am Marcy Bodwin, the Director of Faith Formation Ministry here at Valley UU. Now is the time for our story for all ages. So if there are any children in your house, you'll want to bring them forward in front of your device. Randy Galbraith is our Pastoral Care Associate today, and you can reach them by emailing pastoralcare@buu.org, or you can use the chat function below. The names are in alphabetical order, so just look for Randy Galbraith. Remember that chat is restricted during prayer and meditation and the sermon. You can post your joys and concerns before or after those parts of the service. The wind has picked up here on my back patio. I feel like I'm blowing away and my eyes are all watery. But I do have a video for you today. It's a little different. The story that I'm going to read to you does not have a whole lot of pictures. We have a few added by Reverend Fred for us. But it just seemed really appropriate today with the title of the sermon being, Where Do We Come From? Where Are We Going? This is the story of the first Universalist sermon in America. Enjoy. Do we have the video? When I learned what Reverend Wooden's sermon title was for today, I knew that the perfect story had to be based on the first Universalist sermon given in America. And this story takes place in 1770 in New Jersey. Thomas Potter, a farmer in the area, has built a church on his own property. But most of the people in that time, in that area, believed in predestination, the idea that you were born either good or evil, and no matter what you did, the decision of whether or not you were going to be saved and go to heaven was already made. And there were people like Thomas Potter and his friends next door who believed that God would not be so cruel, that God would give universal love to anyone. And that's the Universalist message. So this story takes the voice of a young girl, Abigail, who lives next door to Thomas Potter. So here we go. This foolish porridge must thicken soon. I've been stirring the pot well nigh an hour, and my arm is like to fall into the fire. Still, if it sticks to the pot and burns, father and mother will pinch their lips together. They will not scold me, but I will not have so fine a day if I've made them sad. And I want a good day today. There will be strangers in town, and there will be exciting things to hear and see. Gideon comes in from feeding the chickens, and he is jumping and howling and chasing the cat as usual. I shush him, but he will pay me no mind. I'm only his big sister. I worry so about Gideon. No matter how mother clucks her tongue at him or how father tries to tire him out with long walks and busy tasks, Gideon will always make noise. And a mess, too. I catch him by the waist as he runs by again, and he puts his rosy face up to me for a kiss. I give him a quick one on his cheek and settle him into his wooden high chair. I push it up to the table so he can't squirm down, and I give him an apple to keep him busy. He's torn his skirts again. I know boys don't begin to wear trousers until they're 5 years old, but I think Gideon would be safer in trousers than he is tripping around in skirts. When the porridge is cooked, I open the wooden shutters on the window to let the sun in. Master Thomas Potter on the next farm has 2 windows with glass in them. Even on the coldest days, he and Mistress Potter have sunlight coming into the house. Oh, if we could have glass in our windows, it would make me happier than almost anything I could think of. Except, of course, a church to go to, like everyone else. While I wait for Mother and Father, I look at Gideon. He's munching on his apple and watching a bird through the window. Hetty Green, who goes to church in town, says that Gideon's mischief-making is a sign that he is not saved, that he will go to hell. Father says I'm not to worry about such things, but Hetty goes to church and we do not. Father says he will not let his family go to any church that frightens children. Well, I understand, but it's hard to be the only ones who don't go. The door opens and Mother and Father come in together. Mother fills our bowls with porridge and Father pours a glass of buttermilk for Gideon and me. Father tells Mother about the strangers who have come to town. The ship is called the Hand in Hand, he said. She was bound for New York until she got stuck on the sandbar out in the bay. You know how the fog gets out there. A man named John Murray came ashore to find food and water. He went to Master Potter. It seems that Murray was a preacher back in England, and Thomas will have it that Master Murray must preach in his church. Oh, well, Thomas Potter will be so happy, Mother said. He built that church 10 years ago, hoping to find a minister who believed as we do. Is Master Murray the one we've been waiting for? Father laughed at Gideon, who was trying to sneak more honey into his porridge. Well, we will see if he's the one. He told Thomas he could not preach because he and his ship had to leave as soon as the winds changed. Thomas said that the wind would not blow for the ship until Master Murray had preached at the church. What? Said Mother. Is Thomas pretending to know what the wind will do? She laughed. Well, said Father, if the wind does not change today, we will be off to church at Master Potter's farm in the morning. That is, if Master Potter agrees. All day I found myself looking out the window to see if the leaves on the trees were moving, and they weren't. I helped Mother carry the carrots and the potatoes to the root cellar where they could keep in the dark until we needed them. I hung up our quilts out on the bushes to air in the sun. I chopped onion and beans for soup. I saw Mother peeking out the window too. Finally, as the sun began to set, Mother said, Abigail, I think we should take your calico and mine out of the chest and shake out the wrinkles. We might be needing those dresses for church tomorrow. A few minutes later, Father came in from the haying. Mother and I watched patiently as he washed his hands and face at the bowl in the corner by the door. He sat by the fire and slowly filled his pipe with tobacco. Mother finally said, Jason, what is to happen? Well, Ellen, Father said, tomorrow we will hear a Universalist sermon in Thomas Potter's church, and I am ready for it. I am ready to hear a preacher who believes that all people are worthy to go to heaven. And I want our Abigail and our Gideon to hear this Universalist preacher too. In the morning, as Father, Mother, Gideon, and I walked the short road to Master Potter's church, I looked over to the bay. And there in the water, its sails still, very still, sat the ship. Father, Mother, Gideon, and I had a church of our own to go to. And I did not mind for once that there was no wind to cool us as we walked in the hot September sun.
Thank you, Marcy. Welcome. I'm Katie Seifert, the Director of Music Ministries, and I am in our sanctuary with Reverend Fred and Mary behind me, practicing social distancing, but happy to be here. And I'm glad to be with you this morning. I invite you to join in singing, or in heart, our first hymn, Where Do We Come From? Before the pandemic, when we could gather in person, this hymn was a fun one to do together, because we could separate ourselves into 4 sections because there's 4 verses, singing each part that created one glorious sound. How wonderful when we can be in person again. So much has changed, hasn't it? Changes that have been challenging and changes that have helped us grow, especially in the areas of technology. Using the app Acapella Maker, I will be singing each of our parts gradually. Whether you know this hymn or it's new to you, I invite you to enjoy the music, to pick a part to sing along to, and ponder, where do we come from and where are we going?
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we?
Good morning. I'm Mary Rothschild, your worship associate, and I want to welcome you all to Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation this bright Sunday morning. And when I say welcome, I mean all y'all, whoever you are, wherever you have been, whatever your background, whoever you choose to love, and however you define your family, you are welcome here. Today, Reverend Wooden is going to talk about journeys and our journey as a congregation toward calling a new settled minister for next year. As a denomination dedicated to democratic values and congregational polity, this is something that we do ourselves. Unlike many other religious organizations, we as a congregation call our ministers and by a democratic vote of the entire congregation. But finding a minister to call is a long process done by the Ministerial Search Committee, of which I'm a member. You elected all 7 of us, and we're already working hard. The Unitarian Universalist Association, our denominational home, has a precise and complicated set of tasks we all must do to be in search, and our committee is taking a big step on those tasks next weekend when we have a virtual 2-day retreat. I'm looking forward to getting to know all of our members better, to understand the search process more clearly, and to meet our retreat facilitator, who already on email seems both very smart and kind. We'll let you know how it goes, I'm sure. But though our committee has a 1.5 years of tasks to do to find a candidate to bring before you, we can only make this journey with your help. We're on our way, clearly, having done some oral histories and the appreciative inquiry exercise, but there are 2 huge tasks ahead of us that we need all of us to take part in. The first of these is a survey we will email out to every member and friend to see who we are individually and as a group. It's really important to actually do it, and I'm sure we all will, I say optimistically. That survey will be emailed fairly soon, I think, and that will be followed later in the summer or early fall, as if we actually have a fall in Phoenix, by cottage meetings, which will be held both on Zoom and in person now that we're allowed to meet folks face to face if we're fully vaccinated. These small groups will tell us a lot about what we want, what we're dreaming of, what we don't want, and how important various skills and tasks are to make our future. There will be a set of questions to be asked of each group, but these cottage meetings will also be a time for all of us to share our hopes and dreams, our fears and misgivings, and our wishes for the future. And again, they will only work if we all participate. Actually, it makes me happy just to think that I'll be seeing some of you in person in these meetings. It's been such a long time since we've been together. Journeys like this can be both exciting and scary, especially when we feel there's such a big prize at the end. But travel can be like that too, opening up new worlds, new experiences, and new ways of looking at the world that can irrevocably change us. When I was just past my 18th birthday in a galaxy far away and had just a week before graduated from Tolt High School in Carnation, Washington, home of the contented cows, I set off for New York City to take a ship to England for my first year of university studying science at White College, the agricultural and horticultural college of the University of London, set in the gorgeous rural county of Kent. I had done some weird for a high school kid experiments with gibberellic acid on Grand Rapid lettuce seeds and broken their genetic code, which was in line with some experiments they were doing at Y on dwarf maize. It turns out, totally unknowingly, I was an early experimenter in genetic modification of plants. But before I started college in late September, I went on a road trip by car with 3 Belgian kids, only one of whom, Eric, I had met before the trip. Eric and Paul were 21, best friends and law students, and Annette was Eric's 18-year-old sister with 1 more year to finish her advanced high school degree. They were all sophisticated, multilingual atheists and socialists. Eric and Annette's grandfather was a founder of the Belgian Socialist Party, and he had been a minister in the government. And I was a prim Republican, social gospel Christian who had no idea what I was doing. but was excited to be included in this adventure. Of course, 4 kids, young men and women, traveling through the Muslim Middle East, going to what I saw as the Holy Land, got a lot of attention, especially when we were in small rural towns. As an example, in the small town of Urfa in Turkish Kurdistan, way into Kurdistan, which Annette wanted me to see because she had seen a picture of it in Holiday magazine, which is the holy city where Abraham was supposed to have been born and has a famous mosque with holy carp. It turned out that the last Westerner to be in Urfa was the photographer who shot that picture 7 years before. We had a crowd follow us around the entire time we were there, and I mean every single minute. At breakfast in a park one day, one of the young men wrote a note to me, though he gave it to Eric, that said, and I quote, "Please, lady, to uncross your legs. You are the shame of Urfa." I was wearing a linen culotte outfit that covered my knees, but not when I was sitting with my legs crossed. Eric wanted me to explain that culottes were pants, but I knew that wasn't going to help. I had unknowingly upset the young man, and for that I was genuinely sorry. My nickname for the rest of the trip was Shame of Urfa. All this is to say that completely unknown to us in advance, we caused a stir everywhere we went. Of course, if we had known anything and had the brains God gave a goose, as my mother used to say, we should have known that in advance, but I certainly didn't. I could tell you scores of stories from that trip where we were in a civil war in Syria, shot at in Damascus, given incredible gifts of thoughtful presence from random strangers, and had the privilege of being in places like Palmyra and Petra all by ourselves. We learned a lot. I became a different person in the 15 months I lived overseas, and that journey, as unprepared and as ridiculously obtuse as I was, completely changed my life. Every major journey I have made has changed me, and I expect journeys you've made have changed all of you too. This journey we are on now as a congregation has the power to change us and VUUs in a way we can't even begin to know. It's my great joy to be part of the search committee, and I hope it will be your great joy to help us find our new path for our new journey. And again, I want to say, welcome. I'm so glad you're here with us today.
First of all, I want to thank Mary for being
Shame
with
of
us.
Urfa.
Shame. Who knew? But I wanted to say, in case you didn't realize, the 3 of us are in the space today. You can even see through from Katie's camera that here we are all together by ourselves.
It's pretty cool.
It is wonderful. And that is to let you know that we are slowly finding our way back into this space. But the important thing, Mary, as you know, is that we were always together, even when we didn't see each other.
Yes.
And it is that that makes us a house of faith. Because we each have something that the world needs, if you heard me earlier. We are all needed to help save the world. That's the real message of universalism. Not that we are good enough to go to heaven, but that we're good enough to be here and to do something of lasting value. And finding that is what spiritual communities are about. We come to them, we work with them, we listen to them, contribute to them, because we become better at ourselves. So the offering is a reminder that every time you appear here, you are contributing to the community by becoming more of who you should be. That happens whether it is in Kurdistan or it could be just being in Mesa. But the point is, when you're here, you discover more of who you are. And that makes you better at being you in a world that needs you. So why tell you all this? Because when you give money, that's a reminder to you that your gift is always being given. Your worth is always being appreciated. Our promise is to return that gift in our care for you, in challenge to you so you grow, in friendship so you're not alone, in learning so that you don't stay put on one spot but continue your journey. And your gift too will grow. So we'll put up that next slide to remind you how that you can click, you can text, you can call, you can write. You practice the gift of giving and becoming practice the power of giving all we have, with the giving we all have, and which makes our lives, all of them, worth the effort to try. Wow, thank you. I hope you go there, and I would like very much to turn things over to Katie now in our centering.
Now is our time for centering. We are here together in the now. But first, let's check in. Are there things weighing on your mind, your heart? Are there physical or environmental conditions that are distracting you now? If so, let's acknowledge those distractions first with gratitude, giving thanks for the lessons they bring. And then with a deep breath, let's let it all go. Breathing in and out. Close your eyes now and see if you can see the shades of red behind your eyelids. Feel the sturdy ground beneath your feet and the strength in your seat. Relax your body. Relax your muscles. Relax your jaw. Quiet the mind and see if you can feel or hear your very own heartbeat. Paying attention to the pulse within you, the rhythm you make. Take another deep breath in, breathing in and out. We are alive. We are in the now together, connected and refilled by the stillness of worship, the stillness of the present. Let's take one more deep breath in, breathing in and releasing out. You may remain relaxed as you enjoy the music, or you can enjoy your own unique voice singing along to our hymn, Find a Stillness.
Find a stillness, hold a stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, hold the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony. Seek the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Let me flower, help me flower, watch me flower, carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony.
Some words from Black Elk as a prayer. Hear me, 4 quarters of the world, a relative I am. Give me the strength to walk the soft earth, Give me the eyes to see and the strength to understand. Look upon these faces of children without number, that they may face the wind and walk the good road to the day of quiet. There's so much in those words that we always stand at the crossroads of the four corners, don't we? That we always are in need of strength to continue the journey, that our eyes always need to see a little more and a little further than we know. And the idea that we need strength to understand, because from time to time, the truth will demand much. It may even tell us we were wrong. And then he says, look at the faces of children without number. Can any of us say we are more than a child in this universe? No. But how often do we think we have accomplished something? To be reminded that we are all children is both sobering and forgiving. That they may face the winds. You know what it's like when the wind comes towards you? It brings aromas. It comes from another place. It touches you upon your face. And from there we walk toward the wind, the good road to the day of quiet. Not the day of victory, not the day of accomplishment, the day of success, not the day of anything majestic or great, but to the day of quiet, to that place we have all glimpsed when a body and soul, heart and mind were so content that they needn't make a sound. Is that not where we wish to be, where we wish to go, where we wish the world to be? So, fellow children, face the wind. Face the wind and put a foot in front of the other toward the day of quiet. That was his prayer. May it be yours. And may grandfather, grandmother, great one, hear it and be with us. Amen.
Our special music today combines our past with our present in a form that we can enjoy well into our future. It is a musical piece composed by our own Izzy Hyman called Reminisce. This present moment will be the first time this piece is performed in front of an audience. Aren't we lucky? In connection to our past, our old pianist Michael Lewis will perform it. Together, they have captured it in video so we could all enjoy it for years to come. One of the cool features of using video. Let's all reminisce together, connected, near and far, in our past, present, and our future.
actually, it was an absolute coincidence. Like a lot of you folks, I spend some time with social media. It's part of my job now. And as I was visiting this morning, Facebook, which remembers everything, reminded me that it was exactly 4 years ago, 2017, when I was making my last leg of a pilgrimage journey that started in Winchester, England, and I had walked all the way from there to Canterbury. And from there, I was going on to Dover, and this was my last day. It was the last day from Canterbury to Dover. And that's what I wrote down 3 days ago. I didn't realize it was actually today. And it was halfway along that trip when I caught up with a fellow pilgrim who was also on her way to Dover. It was a bright May day like it is here, except in England, it never gets above 85. But there were broad fields of yellow rapeseed, which we prefer to call canola, and they were blooming like mad, and the paths go through those fields as often as not. And though we were strangers, complete strangers, we were about the same task. And so we traveled together for the rest of the day, talking of our journeys. She was starting hers, going all the way to Rome on something called the Via Francigena, and I was ending mine. Her journey made me want to go on that journey myself. But I was supposed to start last April, and we all know what happened then. So God's willing, inshallah, Kanahara, at some point I'll be able to start that journey. But I'm using that as a metaphor, as if you couldn't tell, because that describes us. We met along paths that have converged for a time. We have not reached Dover yet, you and I, but we're maybe about halfway there. A year from now, you will be voting on a new settled minister, and I will be deciding if I wish to continue on the path of interim ministry. Truth to tell, I would like to think I could take a year off and maybe do part of that via, but we'll see what happens. The door is open. This path is still calling me, and if I intend to do it, I better do it sooner than later. But as Mary pointed out, when you take a journey, it changes you. You don't just go from point A to point B, you go from person A to person B. And we have changed each other. Maybe not on purpose, but that's what's happened. And my point this morning is to frame my thoughts about your journey toward a new settled minister as a journey of its own, not just a shared one. Being halfway to Dover seemed to be a good time to look back, see where you are now, and begin to imagine what comes next. But let's remember, we met by accident, just like I met that young woman on her way to Rome. I was newly retired and looking for an interim job because I needed to pay for the new boiler and central AC in my house, and I didn't want to take them out of my retirement accounts. But just also to have something to do. When you stop working, it's hard to stop working. And I thought maybe this would be a nice thing to kind of step down. But, you know, they have a round robin where interim ministers and interim churches meet and greet, and they each bid on each other. It's a little bit like an auction, though not quite as ferocious. And, oh, no, it's much more like when you choose up teams on the playground. I'll take Billy, I'll take Sarah. And who was left at the end? I struck out. Not a single church wanted me as their interim minister this time last year. I guess 40 years of working in a pulpit doesn't mean quite as much as it used to. But it turned out that was the best stroke of luck I could have imagined. Because you had reached a point quite unexpectedly when you needed someone, and who was left? Me. What luck. What wonderful luck. You had had a year very similar to mine. You had said farewell on 3 different occasions to a long-term music minister, to a devoted church administrator, to your own settled minister. And then let's just add icing to that cake and throw a pandemic right on top of it. Marcy Bodwin related to me that you virtually heard about Sue and Andy at the same time. I can't imagine how gobsmacking that was. But honestly, if it hadn't happened the way it had, I wouldn't be here. And you know, I think we were made for each other right now. I can't say about a year earlier or a year later, but we're made for each other now. We're on this path and we are good for each other because we are both dealing with unexpected and expected losses, changes that rattled our sense of who we are, of where we were. Who was I if I was no longer an active clergy person? Who were you if you could not even meet in person? What was my role in the world now? And what was your task in the world? These are exactly the questions every congregation faces every day, and they should face. But especially when their settled minister departs. And that has been my task with you, to ask those questions. So what's your name? How far are you going? Tell me about your journey so far. Should we sit down and have a beer together and talk? Kind of like I did back then on the path. It is not my role to answer those questions. It is my role to ask them. It's not my role to change the questions to the ones I want to ask, because deciding who you are and where you are going is the unalienable right and duty of a congregation, something deeply embedded in our history, our tradition, and something that Mary referred to as congregational polity. A lot of syllables that means you're on your own. You got to make up your own mind, because only you as a body can make those choices. But how do you find those answers? That was what my training was about when I went to interim school last June. And I learned a lot, there's no question. But there was still something missing for me, a theme, a thread that was more than doing this task or that exercise. That's what I need. Now, two things really helped me out. At the beginning of my service, Linda Horton, who was my host when I first visited, the chair of our transition team, handed me a book and said, "Have you read this?" And it was by Susan Beaumont, a church consultant, and its title was How to Lead When You Don't Know Where You're Going. That would be me. And so I read the book, and it talks about how congregations in flux, like those between ministers, or like those dealing with a lot of change, that would be every congregation right now, if you ask me, really have a plate full of liminal going on. It's hard. And her counsel was try not to control it. Try to be in it. Be present to the fluidity. And it helped me a lot, and I shared it with the board and the transition team. And we found a lot in it that's helped us, not so much technically. We feel more at home in the fluidity because it's inevitable. It can't be otherwise. We can't control it any more than King Canute could stop the ocean at the shore. But I still wanted more than that. I needed an idea, a metaphor, an arc, something that would put it all together in one whole. And when I started thinking about that, something from the basement of my mind, you have a basement too, right? Those places where you put all your college books and all your papers and all the things you did 30 years ago and you've forgotten about them. And then suddenly you'll go down there and in the middle of the dust, one of them turns up, and it did. Dag Hammarskjöld was the Secretary of the United Nations from 1953 to 1961 when he died in a suspicious plane crash in Africa. After that death, his personal diary surfaced and was published under the name Markings, but the Swedish really meant waymarks, like the things you see when you're walking on a trail and you see a little slash in a tree or a triangle to point you to the way you're going. Long before I started walking pilgrim paths, I got a copy of that book, which revealed a man of deep spiritual awareness and longing. Over nearly 40 years, he set down his personal thoughts on vocation, on religion, spirituality, the inner and outer life, stating at one point, and I think this is a great stroke of genius that's now 70 years old, in our age, the road to holiness necessarily passes through the world of action. Just yesterday, I was reading Paul Tillich, who reminded me that protest is a form of communion. Action, holiness, protest, communion. Is that not what we are about? So I continued thinking of Hammarskjöld, of him, his life, his sense of vocation as a journey. What are the waymarks of the Spirit here? A few weeks ago, you shared your collective and personal stories, the choices you made and shared, and the challenges you've met. Here's a sample of some of the things you contributed back on April 25th. Quote, I was very proud of our protests about the cruelty of Arpaio's tent city, encircling the demonstrators in our yellows standing on the side of love shirts. Protest, communion. Think about that. Someone else said, support for an ex-convict sexual predator who wanted to join our community. Talk about facing a challenge and challenging yourselves, not just the person. Someone else said the Pride Parade. I heard a story that when Andy was your candidate, you kind of put him through his paces by dragging him off to the Pride Parade while he was here candidating. And because it's June, it's enough to fry an egg on the top of anyone's head. But he was a game kid and he went along with it. There you go. Think about that. Holiness through action. Someone else said when VUU and UCC choirs joined to perform the Street Requiem, it was so moving, so international, it held heaviness and joy. What great memories they are because they capture the challenge and the satisfaction, the holiness and the struggle, the protest and the communion. Having breakout groups during COVID, someone said, it gave opportunities to connect and stay in touch. And I would say for some people, opportunities they never had before. Now, we put all those together. And I ran them through something called, well, let me get my pages in the right order. As I told the participants today, we're always making this up as we go along. That's because we're liberals. Friends, another person said, friends from the congregation who babysat my grandchildren so I could go to the hospital for the birth of my third grandchild, and they covered the kids till morning. And all the glamour, if you want to call it, of public protest, private, personal care is still the threads that hold us into one community. These are your spiritual waymarks, signs of who you are and where you are. The transition team and I will make the collection more available the way we did your oral history, so you can read and appreciate. But the question today is what lies ahead? Hammarskjöld would be the first to say that we should not try to answer that too quickly. He wrote in Markings, do not look back and do not dream about the future either. It will neither give back the past nor satisfy your daydreams. Your duty, reward, your destiny are here and now. Think about that. How much time do we spend planning the future without showing up for today? How often do we invest in tomorrow while looking at the past as useless? So what is here and now as you open yourselves to the unknown of tomorrow? Can we just stand here for a little bit and say, who are we now? And see if that gives a clue. So we took your answers to the questions and we aggregated them. And when we did that, we created one of those familiar word clouds, a visual. And the larger ones appear more, the smaller ones less. And I want you to see the first one. Let's see if we can get that up there. Look at those words. And look also at how beautiful they are. Together, not just separately. It looks just like you. I look at that and I say, that's VUU all over. This is who you are right now. If you did this a few years ago, it would look different. Now, I want to let you know I created 2 word clouds because there's another one, because I took the words from your mission and vision and end statements, which are older, And I made them into a cloud of their own. So let's see if we can see the other one, see how they're different. And behold, they are different. And yet at the same time, they are similar. And there in the difference and similarity is your work. You have two images of VUU right now, similar and compatible, but not identical. Is one more appealing or exciting than the other? If so, why? Many congregations looking for a new clergy person will say they want someone who can show them the way, inspire them with their own vision. But you already have a vision here. One, not two, because the vision you have encompasses both of those clouds. Your vision is the sky in which those clouds are found. It is not mine to tell you, nor is it the task of your next settled minister, because that's your unalienable right and duty to claim your vision, your path, your hope. It is not we who seek the way, says Hammarskjöld, but the way seeks us. That is why you're faithful to it. Even while you stand waiting, so long as you are prepared and act the moment you are confronted by its demands. Boy, there's a spiritual challenge. It's time to think of the future. So what do? Stand still. Wait for the path to show itself. If that sounds paradoxical, it is. Because so often we are in such a hurry to make choices that we forget that the choice will make itself evident if we give ourselves the patience to listen for it. The way seeks you, as it does me. What it is and where it leads, you cannot know today. The only choice is to know yourself, which you do now, a little better, where you have been, where you are now. And how do we do that, as Hammarskjöld would counsel? In the point of rest at the center of our being, he says. Let me start that again. In the point of rest at the center of our being, we encounter a world where all things are at rest in the same way. Then a tree becomes a mystery, a cloud, a revelation. Each man, a cosmos of whose riches we can only catch glimpses. The life of simplicity is simple, but it opens to us a book in which we never get beyond the first syllable. Whew. Just trying to take in the words is gobsmacking. When I began thinking about this sermon last week, I fretted over what to say. What recommendations I, the expert interim minister, should offer you right now. And then I read Hammarskjöld and realized that until I know the center of my being, I cannot begin to speak to yours. And neither can you. So there is your task. Your most vital task right now is to wait until you know the center of your being, that place where you rest, that day of quiet. And when you know that, you will be able to know the way forward and who should go with you. If there is an eternal and universal thing about religion, this is it. Remember going to Philadelphia to General Assembly almost 40 years ago. And I went to visit the Friends General Meeting House, which is where the Quakers, their oldest central meeting house. You know what the Quakers do? Nothing. That's how they meet. And there was a poster on the wall, and I've remembered it ever since. Don't just do something, sit there. We have lost the capacity to sit, to wait, to listen, to receive. We have equated strength with going and doing and winning and accomplishing, when in reality, it is to be clear about who you are, so you can be in the world exactly as you should be. Of all the words present in the clouds, I noticed, the word religion was not. What does that say about you? Are you so eager to be something that you are avoiding not being something? Questions. Perhaps its absence is saying something that deserves to be heard. Are you in some capacity ready to receive, to listen, to wait? So, I was at Potter's Chapel a few years ago. You may have seen that picture of the chapel. I took that, which is why it's such a bad photograph, because you just take a picture in a hurry and send it to your friends. It's not a very momentous place, but that was the place where one man's life changed. And because his life changed, a movement was born. No one knew that at the time. But if you want to date our faith, that's where it started. In a chapel that is unremarkable, in a field that is not particularly beautiful, off a road that's not particularly interesting. Now, in my opinion, universalism will be the message that speaks to the world that is coming, a message of universal love and hope. And how you live that message will determine the path you take. Francis of Assisi is supposed to have told his followers, always preach the gospel, when necessary, use words. That's really not what he says. What he actually said, it is more pertinent, it's no use walking anywhere to preach unless our walking is our preaching. Where you go is the message you have to offer. Your journey is your message, so it behooves you to wait until you know where it's going. Those who seek you will be those who wish to walk with you along that road of universal love and hope, of truth and justice. I bid you not look for a settled minister at all, but unsettle that person. Make them go with you. This person is coming here not to be with you, but to go with you. The one who wishes to share the road, to share the path, who shares the message you are offering, with whom you can walk, walking together, holding one another up as you go along, asking questions, offering a hand, sitting patiently when one is tired. And it will be on that path with that person that you will discover even deeper meaning and purpose and figure out what that path is beyond now. What could we ask more of a spiritual life than this, than to be with someone who wanted to be with you as you go? What more could we ask of our community than to go with us as we go into a future we cannot know? I know you're eager to go. I get that. But if you want my advice, sit still for a little while. Wait the peace that is at the center of your being so that you can see the mystery of trees and the endless blue of the sky and appreciate the cosmos in every person. And when you do that, the way ahead will be so clear, it will be undeniable. And all those clergy out there looking for a way to go will say, I want to go with them. Wait for your path. It is calling you, I just know it. And it is a joy to have been with you along the way. Thank you again for letting me be with you. And let's close up our time of worship together with song. Katie, could you lead us back into song, please?
Yes, thank you, Reverend Fred. Let's join together in heart and song with the folks from First Unitarian Church of Baltimore, singing Turn the World Around. And thank you, Reverend Fred, for that imagery and that reminder that turning the world around includes just sitting, being still, and traveling that inner journey and that journey together forward. So let's sing, Turn the World Around.
We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Oh, so is life. Ah, so is life. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? See we one another clearly. Do you know who we are? See we one another clearly. See we one another clearly. Do you know who we are? Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Water make the river, river wash the mountain. Fire make the sunlight turn the world around. Heart is of the river, body is the mountain. Spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the Spirit, truly of the Spirit. Only can the Spirit turn the world around. Oh, so is life. Ah, so is life. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life.
It's so cool to see my home church. I was so excited to see them. My great grandmother was a member of that church. So was my grandmother. And that makes me a fourth generation member of that church. Cool. But what's important here is you need some words as we go forth into the world. These are from our gray hymn book. The author is anonymous, but I think they are perfectly suited for today. The author says to laugh is to risk appearing the fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out for another is to risk exposing your true self. To place our ideas, our dreams before a crowd is to risk loss. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To hope is to risk despair. To try is to risk failure. To live is to risk dying. And since we're going to die anyway, let's live, shall we? Mary, would you help us conclude our worship by extinguishing the chalice?
Please join me in saying our chalice extinguishing words together. Though we extinguish this chalice, our connection to each other and this community remains. May its light guide us this week as we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, and fill our world with compassion until we meet again. Now, please stay for our breakout rooms after the service is over. If you're new and would like to Zoom meet Reverend Wooden and some other members, just stay where you are. Decline the breakout room and you will magically be where Reverend Wooden is to talk. Thanks and have a wonderful week.
Thank you, Mary.
My pleasure.
Yep. And I'm just gonna stay here since I got my big thing going here.
All right.
You guys should be able to unmute yourselves now, those of you who are still in this room.
Been trying. Oh, there we go. I've been trying.
Yeah, I'm unmuted.
Hey, how are you, Nancy?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I gotta turn off my other. Now I'm gonna leave. Yeah. Oh, there we are. Okay, can you still hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Let me turn up my volume a little bit.
Good.
I was duplicating myself. Hey, Leon, how you doing, dude?
Doing all right. I can't, we're not all on the screen. Let me take
Yeah, we
a
got to
look.
get a screen here.
Here, I can stop this screen share. Maybe
There
that'll
you
change it.
go. That was pretty.
We can go ahead and probably kill the YouTube stream. I mean, nobody's really going to be watching all this. Yeah.